Welcome to this week's episode of Mysterious Cryptids.
So good evening, listener. My name is Rob. I am the presenter and the podcaster here at Mysterious Cryptids. This is our very first episode. It's going to be an introduction episode and basically explaining what the show is about. We'll also touch on a topic of the show's kind of genre, if you like, as well. Also with some like personal, why I kind of do this kind of stuff, if that makes sense, why I do it. And just kind of introduction to the show so you can kind of get a grasp of what the show's going to be moving forward. So the show is called Mysterious Cryptids. If you've obviously not seen, on the podcast site itself, we are called Mysterious Cryptids, and we look at the ever-growing evidence or reports of these mysterious animals from around the world. So from the Loch Ness Monster to Sasquatch to the Yeti to the Chupacabra to the numerous of these like beasties that have seemed to be spotted out in the wild every week throughout the decades, throughout the years, and for hundreds of years in some cases. So we are basically going to be doing that. We're going to be looking into them every week and different story or different topic every week. This week, however, because it's the introduction week, I wanted to share a bit about myself and a bit about why I'm doing this, if you like, because I have a true love for this, for cryptozoology. I'm fascinated by it because either everybody's lying, everybody's mistaken, or there's actually more to these sightings of especially some of these creatures. Like, for instance, the one we're going to talk about today is the British big cats. Now, there's a reason why I'm talking about that one today, and that's going to be our first episode, because I've actually had a personal experience with British big cats, which is, if you've never heard of that, is basically in the UK there is no such thing. Well, there's not supposed to be any such thing as big cats or pumas, panthers, lynxes, leopards, stuff like that. There's not supposed to be these things in the UK. We're not supposed to have them. But yet, hundreds of people every year claim to have seen these very big, not domestic cats, not a little black cat. You're talking cats the size of a big dog. These are big animals. And you see a lot of people, and you hear a lot of people that reported these sightings. And one of the things that got me into it is I've seen big cats in the UK. I've seen them. I've seen evidence of them. I've seen footprints of them. I've actually seen a big black, it was either a puma or a panther. It was a big black cat. It crossed my path less than 20 foot away from me. It looked directly at me and then it ran off. And I had it was light. I could see what it were. You got skeptics that would say, well, it's a misidentification. It wasn't. I know what I saw. I know what I saw. It was a huge, big, black cat. It saw me. I don't think it was expecting to see me because of where I were. I was walking through the woods. I was walking really in the middle of nowhere. We'd just come off this moorland like area, and we got dropped down into like this valley, into the woods. We weren't on any paths. It wasn't a very popular, it wasn't a very popular like walking area. We were just off the beaten track, and it walked from one side. It was like a clearing in these woods. I was walking through the clearing. It walked from one side of the woods to the other. It stopped in the middle of the clearing, looked directly at me, and then carried on walking. I had a very clear sight of what I know I saw. So today we're talking about that, basically. Yeah. So today we're talking about that. But going forward, we're going to be talking about Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, and all these other beasts, if you like, of the world that either aren't supposed to exist or aren't supposed to exist anymore, or aren't supposed to exist where they're getting sighted, like today's topic, for instance, the British big cats. So, yeah, that's basically what the show's going to be about. That is what the show's going to be about, and it's a topic that's very close to me. It's something I've wanted to do for a long, long time. I've worked in radio for about 20 years now, doing mainly music radio, not so much talk radio, but and I am a full-time professional DJ. I tend to DJ on weekends and stuff, and during the week I do a lot of this kind of stuff. I research things in the cryptozoology world. I'm very fascinated by it. Even to the point where I go on expeditions. So I go on Bigfoot expeditions from time to time. I've got one coming up in October where I'm going to America. I'm going to a part of Pennsylvania, and we go out and we look for evidence of these cryptids. So I've got a massive fascination, and I've got the time and the energy, and I'm in a position where I can now do this podcast. So that's why we're doing it. That's why we're here, and that's a bit about me, a bit about the reason why I'm doing this, and what's kind of prompted me to do this. So, but moving on, we're going to talk about today's topic, which is British big cats. So as previously mentioned, I explained my encounter with a British big cat was very near. It was very close, 20 foot away. I could see its face, I could see its features, I could see it. It was very, very clear. And it was in the open. I think it was startled, it was shocked that I saw it. I don't think it expected me to see it, or even expected me to be there. And that's why I think it ran off. It kind of just stared at me for a couple of seconds and then ran off. But I know what I saw. I must have saw a good 5 or 6 seconds. And I know it doesn't sound a lot, but you count to 5-6 seconds. It's longer than you think. And I know what I saw. It was huge. It was massive. It was really, really big. Its paws must have been as big as my hand. It was very, very big. And so for me, that's what got me into this. So today's topic is going to be on British big cats. So the British big cat phenomenon, the sightings have been a topic of fascination and controversy for many, many years. These sightings refer to reports of large wild cats such as pumids, leopards, lynxes, so forth, even tigers sometimes throughout the United Kingdom. While some dismiss these sightings as nothing more as hoaxes or misidentifications as mentioned, others believe that there may be an actual population, albeit maybe a small population, of British wild big cats living in the wilds of the UK. The first reported sighting of such big cats in the UK date back to the 1760s, when a large black panther that was spotted near Cumbria. However, it wasn't really into the 1960s and 70s that the sightings started to become more frequent. Many of these sightings were reported by farmers and people who lived in rural areas. Like I said before, where my personal sighting was in the middle of nowhere. Since then, there has been numerous reports of these British big cats throughout the UK, indicating that they may be a small but a substantial population of these animals. So despite the frequency of these sightings, there is still very much a debate over whether or not these big cats truly are in the wilds of the UK. Some skeptics argue that many of these sightings are simply the result of misidentification of domestic cats or dogs, while others believe that some sightings may be hoaxes perpetrated by the individuals looking for attention or publicity, which I understand some people will do that, but you're not saying some people, you'd have to say everybody is either lying, wrong, or they're just wrong. Yeah, they're just lying to you, they're just hoaxing you, and I find that very hard to believe that everybody is wrong. So in addition, there have been several reports of livestock being attacked by large cats, with evidence of this such as claw marks and bite marks and even fur, which some experts believe could only be the work of a big cat. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, the British big cat phenomenon continues to intrigue people throughout the UK. Some individuals have even dedicated their lives to tracking and studying these elusive creatures. I must admit, I am one of those people. I spend a lot of my spare time doing research into cryptids. I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. I've spent many hours, either trolling through the internet and literally like just trying to find out, latest reports, evidence, stuff like that. But more to that, I've also spent a lot of time out in the field. I spend a lot of time, a lot of people close to me think I'm balmy for doing this, but I spend a lot of time following up on these so-called sightings of these animals, and I go to the location. I see, actually, could it be a big cat, or could it be a misidentification? Because it is important to debunk as much as it is to prove. It's just as important. So I go to these sites a lot. I mean a lot. Every week I'm out looking at a different area, a different location, and I see evidence a lot of the time for these cats. And people often argue, especially as skeptics, they often argue the case of if they lived here, more people would see them, or you'd see them in cities and stuff. And you wouldn't, because you don't. When you go to locations in the world where these cats are known to exist, you don't see them in cities, and you just don't. They're just not there. They're not near people. They try and stay away from people as much as they can. And then you get other people say the UK is not big enough. The UK is plenty big enough. Anybody that has ever spent any real time outdoors in the UK will tell you it is big enough. Because a 10-15 minute drive from most towns or cities in the UK, a 10 or 15 minute drive from the centre of that town or city in one direction, just one general direction, normally, especially in the north and going into Scotland, usually leads to the middle of nowhere. It usually leads you to the wilds, to moorland, to woods, to forested areas, to national parks, whatever it may be. But it literally is normally a 10, 15, 20 minute max drive from a city or a town centre, and you are in the middle of the countryside. You are nowhere. You are in the middle of nowhere. But like a lot of these things, we have to theorise of what these things could be and what they might not be, and we have to entertain the idea that maybe we are wrong, maybe there isn't actual big cats. So there's several theories to how these big cats could have ended up in the UK in the first place. One theory is that they were brought over as exotic pets, or part of a travelling circus, and may have been released or escaped into the wild. Another theory suggests that they may have been introduced to the UK by the Romans or other ancient civilizations, and have been living in the wild ever since. Regardless of how they may have arrived or the existence of the big cats in the UK, the important question about conservation of wildlife management, if these animals are indeed here, has to be spoke about, because if they are here, we do have to now conserve them, because it's obviously not their natural habitat. One thing is clear though, is that these sightings have truly captured the imagination of people throughout the UK, and have sparked an important conversation about conservation, wildlife management, and enduring mystery of these elusive creatures. Whether they are real or not, or whether they're simply a figment of people's imagination, I personally, as I've mentioned earlier in this show, I don't think that. I know what I saw. I saw a big cat, big black cat. It was huge. It was massive. So I know what I saw, and I know that they're here, but there has to be a conversation about it, and it's not just people telling you what they see. You have to prove what you've seen, because until you prove that they're here, nobody is going to believe you. But I think it's safe to say, overall, the British big cat sightings have really captured people's imagination, and are a source of fascination with experts, enthusiasts alike. People trying to find these animals, track these animals, and prove the existence of these animals in the UK. In recent years, there have been many efforts to study and track the British big cat in a more systematic way, if you like. For example, the Big Cats in Britain organisation, which was established in 1992 to gather and analyse evidence of big cat sightings throughout the UK, the organisation has received thousands of reports over the years. Literally thousands. The organisation has received thousands of reports over the years and has published a map of reported sightings across the country. In addition, some researchers have used DNA analysis to try and identify the species of big cats that may be living in the UK. In 2003, a team of scientists analysed hair samples collected from a big cat sighting in Devon and concluded that the animal was most likely a puma, indicating that these animals do indeed live in the UK. Through the process of DNA analysis, it is proof that these animals are living, or at least in the area, to leave their fur or their hair samples. Whether they are real, as mentioned before, or a product of a human imagination, the British big cat does still remain a fascinating topic and an enduring mystery, and the testament of the enduring power and mystery of the natural world. So, to kind of summarise, to kind of not wrap it up, but to try and, get across the importance of kind of like this, proving to a sense of, to people that these things exist. It is very important, obviously, but it's necessary, because if these creatures are here, then they do need looking after. They do need, obviously, conservation efforts. But more than that, people do obviously need to know that they are here, and that they are here, because, like I said to you before, I have seen these animals. I know they are here. But people need to know that they're here, because conservation, but also safety. Because these are wild animals, and if you do, back into a corner a wild animal, they can become aggressive, and you don't want that and end up somebody getting hurt in the long run. So for me, as somebody who's interested in cryptozoology, for somebody that know what I've seen, and I thought for an opening episode of the series, we would touch upon the British big cats, which we have spoken about a bit today. Moving forward into the next weeks, into future episodes, into future topics, if you like, we'll be talking about a range of things. I'll be talking about other expeditions I've been on. I'll be talking about other stories. We are going to get on some guests as well. So the episode length of these podcasts is going to be somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes. The idea of these podcasts is a morning commute, or an afternoon commute home. You can listen to it in the car, or you can listen to it on the bus or the train or the tube or whatever. You can just listen to it as you're going to and from work, about your day. I don't personally like podcasts that are over 45 minutes long. Personally, I think it's too long. It takes up too much of my time. If I end up having to pause it, I can't bother going back to the episode. So the whole idea of the show is for something you to listen to, something hopefully you find interesting, something you find fascinating, and something that you will hopefully come back to week after week after week. We will be releasing a new episode every week. There's myself who writes and hosts the podcast, and then we've got our fantastic editor Mike. He edits them, he puts them all together, he puts all the sounds and all the music and does all the magic. Basically, I just talk at a microphone for 40-50 minutes, and then he edits it all down, and then he sends it out. So we're a two-person team, and yeah, so going forward, that's basically the whole idea, the whole premise of the show, is to talk about these mysterious cryptids from around the world. If you wanted to ever contact the show, or contact us and get involved with the show, feel free to do so. You can email us at the email address is thebcro@yahoo.com. So if you want to email us, feel free to do so. We would love to know about your sightings. We would love to know about what you found, if you've ever seen anything, if you've got any stories, or you've ever been on expeditions yourself. So yeah, if you wanted to email us, you can do. You can email us, thebcro@yahoo.com. That is our organisation. Our organisation website is Cryptozoology Research Organisation. So we're the CRO. And the website address for that is cryptidresearch.com. if you go to there, you can read the articles, the sightings, the reports of other cryptids throughout the UK or from other cryptids from throughout the world. If you visit our website, it's all on there. You can contact us, you can leave your own sightings. It all comes through to us here at our dashboard, and then we can talk about them in future episodes. We can discuss them. If you have a particular story and you're willing to share it, we can get you on as a guest on the podcast itself. But the whole idea of the show, the whole idea of the podcast is to shine a kind of a light on this corner of the world, and on you know, this kind of corner of mystery, of like the unknown. Because you get a lot of people that do podcasts on true crime, obviously, and you get a lot of people that do podcasts on hauntings and, you know, mysteries and, you know, ghosts and stuff like that, and they're all brilliant and they're all great. But for me, my true love is cryptozoology. I love the idea that there's beasts and things we don't know about within the science community. I've actually, speaking of the science community, I've actually got a bit of a background in science myself. I will talk about that again maybe in a future episode. We'll go in a bit more as these episodes progress. You'll learn a bit more about me, you'll learn a bit more about my background, and you'll learn a bit more about why we're doing this kind of podcast. But yeah, in conclusion, that is kind of our first episode, our introduction to the world of cryptozoology. A first-hand report of my personal sighting here in the UK, and my personal sighting wasn't a Sasquatch or the Loch Ness Monster, but for me, it was a very large, big black cat that should not be in the UK. These animals are not supposed to be a part of the UK, and yet I saw one. So cryptozoology isn't just about the Yeti, the Loch Ness Monster, the Chupacabra. It's not just about the heavyweights, if you like, the giants. It's about the, I don't want to say mundane, but the more regular sightings, the things that just shouldn't be here. And I think people need to understand that that's the part of cryptozoology too. So anyway, that's just about it for me in this episode. I wanted to not go on too much for the introduction episode. Some episodes might be longer, they might go up to 40 minutes or so, especially if we've got guests on. We've got people that want to talk. We might at some point get Mikey on, our brilliant editor, see if he see what his thoughts are and what he thinks of all these, and maybe, you know, he can share his opinion and his thoughts on it, and that might be something we do later down the line. But yeah, going down the route of guests is definitely something we're going to do. I hope you've enjoyed the first episode. I hope it's not been too rambly. I've tried to keep it together, and I've tried to keep coherence with it. It's always very hard to start a new show. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I am a professional presenter. I've done this for many years. But it's always very hard to start a new show, because it's always a case of where do you start? Where do you start? How do you start it? So it's always tricky when you do your first episode, but hopefully you get an idea of what we are here, what we do. Obviously, you know, not everyone will agree with what is said on the show, and you don't have to, and that's fine. And if you just listen to it because you're interested in it, that's great. If you want to get in contact, however, it is the bcro@yahoo.com. You can also visit cryptidresearch.com, which is our organisation, which is our website for our organisation, and you can drop us messages on there. You can read our blog from articles and sightings and stuff, and yeah, just get involved with the organisation, get involved with the podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Anyway, I'm going to pretty much wrap it up now. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you have a great day / evening / commute to work. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And we will be back again with a new episode next week. Bye for now.
That's all we have time for this week. Join us again next week. Why not advertise with us? Email thebcro@yahoo.com.